Good afternoon, everyone. Amazing Workplaces is really delighted to get this opportunity to partner with Women Development Cell at SRCC. Thank you so much for this great opportunity. Today is a really special day. It's March 8th, the International Day for Women. It's a day to celebrate the spirit of womanhood. The day is marked annually as one of the most important days of the year and sees a number of missions to help forge a gender equal world. However, celebrating women's achievements and increasing visibility while calling out inequality is its key mission. Today, on this International Day for Women, we have gathered to celebrate the life journey of four dynamic women leaders, which symbolizes the journey of millions of other women across the globe. It is our immense good luck and a matter of pride that we have amongst us not only two women leaders from India for this event, but also an Indian woman leader based out of San Francisco and an American woman leader from Wisconsin, United States. While this just goes out to prove that the issues related to women are not geography agnostic, it also brings to light the fact that across the world women continue to make a significant progress and a place for themselves against all odds. So without taking much of your time, let me introduce you to our four dynamic, charismatic, and very young women leaders who shall take on the stage shortly to share how they have traveled this far and what makes them so special for their organizations, their families, the society, and most of all, their own selves. Our first panelist is Sonika Bakshi. Sonika is a writer, a senior marketing professional at Cushman and Wake, and co-founder of Stronger Than Cancer. Stronger Than Cancer is a one of its kind cancer survival awareness platform which talks about hope and affirms that cancer is not a death sentence and that it can be won over. Sonika also writes for leading opinion websites including The Quint, Daily O, The Week, etc. Beyond this, Sonika also is a high altitude trekker and is passionate about traveling. Our second panelist is Purva Gera. Purva Gera is currently the head of organizational development at WhiteHat Jr. Her core areas of interest are culture, leadership, development, people, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Prior to WhiteHat Jr., Purva has had 16 plus years of experience as global diversity, equity, and inclusion leader for banking and capital markets vertical at Genpact. Purva has many accolades and awards to her credit, which includes the Brandon Hall Gold Awards and Brandon Hall Best Advance in D&I Strategy and Leadership Development of Women. She is also the General Secretary of the National Banking and Credit Council, Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, India. Our third panelist is Nandani Eastwood. Based in San Francisco, Nandani is the CTO and co-founder of Speakfully. She is responsible for the tech side of the organic and ever-evolving human-centric platform to address workplace mistreatment, including retaliation, harassment, and microaggression. Known for humanizing tech solutions, Nandini is ensuring the success of the Speakfully mission by integrating social and emotional intelligence into the overall technical roadmap of the brand. Prior to joining Speakfully, Nandini headed the Assurance Software Engineering Department and also served as a technical advisor to companies globally. A passionate proponent of women in STEM, Nandini supports access to diverse talents while enabling women to grow and learn to their fullest potential. Our fourth panelist is Jana Morin. Jana Morin joins us from Wisconsin, United States. She is CEO and co founder of Speakfully, a platform to help employees and companies grow through the recording and sharing of uncomfortable experiences within the workplace. Speakfully is behind a movement to create psychologically safe environments through its documentation, reporting, and support resources. After experiencing workplace harassment herself, Jana channeled her passion for changing workplace culture by leveraging design and technology to create a platform that decodes the gray area supporting individuals, human resources departments, and leadership to address and improve workplace issues, creating a safer work environment for us all. We are also joined by two more distinguished women leaders, Simrit Kaur, the principal of Sri Ram College of Commerce, and Dr. Monica Bansal, assistant professor, Sri Ram College of Commerce, and convener of Women Development Cell. So once again, a very warm welcome to Sonika, Purva, Nandani, and Jana, Simrit ma'am, Dr. Monica, and all the students at SRCC who have joined us today. It is a pleasure to have all of you here as our esteemed guests and audience for today's Women's Day event. The event starts with an address by Dr. Monica, followed by the principal's address. Over to you, Monica.
Thank you, Ekta. Thank you so much. So respected Principal Ma'am, Professor Simrit Kaur, esteemed dignitaries, Ms. Ekta Kapoor, co-founder and editor-in-chief, Amazing Workplaces, faculty members, and my dear students. My warm greetings to all on the occasion of International Women's Day. This day is symbolic of the historic journey women around the world, how they have taken their journey to make this world a better place. It also comes as a reminder that while a lot has been achieved, the journey is long and a lot more remains to be done in the direction of women equality and women empowerment. On behalf of Women Development Cell SRCC, I welcome you all to this power-packed session. It's my proud privilege to be a woman, first of all, and secondly, because I'm getting this, opportunity to interact with women leaders who are making a difference in their respective fields. They broke the glass ceiling and are changing the world for better. So the other day I was reading an article and I found this very interesting and I should say powerful statement given by Indra Nooyi, the ex-CEO of PepsiCo. She said that women should not see themselves as a second-class citizen. They should know that they too have arrived on the scene. And that particular statement reminded me of a very famous quote. I'm sure you all must have heard of it. खुदी को कर बुलंद इतना कि हर तकदीर से पहले खुदा बंदे से खुद पूछे कि बता तेरी रजा क्या है. Yes, I strongly believe that strong women are not simply born. We are forged through challenges of life. And with each challenge, I think we grow mentally, we grow emotionally, right? And we move forward with our heads held high and a strength that cannot be denied. A woman who has been through storms and survived. Yes, we are warriors, and as warriors I think there is no limit to what a woman can accomplish, right? So with these words I once again take this opportunity to welcome all these speakers, those who are going to inspire us with their inspirational journeys and incredible journeys so far. And before that, let me take this opportunity to invite our principal, Professor Simrit Kaur, who herself is a lady of substance. She's a visionary. She's a dynamic leader. Last time, as I said, she's an empathic leader, right? Empathetic leader, and she's paving the way for SRCC to become a college of global choice. Over to you, ma'am.
Heartiest congratulations to all of us on this platform, to all the women for this beautiful day, and all the male who would have joined on this platform to compliment and congratulate the women.
Exactly.
My sincere gratitude to Monica for organizing this. Thank you so much, Jana, Purva, Nandani, Sonika for being here, and Ekta paving the path so wonderfully at the beginning of the session. When I talk about the Women's Day, the first thing that comes to the mind is all about women not in that comfortable a position a couple of decades ago. And that is how the spirit of celebrating womenhood and women started off. Maithili Sharan Gupta, a very famous poet of India, had once written long ago, Abla Nari Teri Yahi Kahani, Aanchal mein hai doodh, aankhon mein hai pani. That even though you are the one who nurtures nature, who nurtures the other children, you are the mother, yet in your own eyes, you're always crying. There are tears in your eyes. Now, this kind of a depiction of a woman is a very old kind of a depiction, And I'm very sure that the modern women have come a long way from the way in which Maithili Sharan Gupta had envisaged the women to be in that kind of a society. But the kind of cultural embedments are so deep that even today we have far too many missing women and unwanted girl childs. Missing women because there is female feticitis. Even before the female is born, she's killed off. It could be female infanticitis. At the birth of a woman, girl, the girl is killed. And at the same time, we have so much of meta preference for a son. It is so strong that even if you are not killing your girl child, you continue to have children until such time that the so-called male child arrives. So leading to both the missing women as well as the unwanted women. And despite the modernization, despite the urbanization, despite so much of development and GDP growth rate, somehow development has not been an antidote for bringing about gender parity. Very unfortunate, Punjab and Haryana, the two states in India which are doing so well in terms of their per capita income levels. Yet the sex ratio is so adverse, touching close to 1,200 males for every 1,000 females, whereas ideally it should be about 1,000 to about 1,000. So where are things going wrong? Culturally embedded are things like patrilineality. Money and inheritance goes only to the male child. Patrilocality, it is the woman who changes her house after the marriage. There are so many rituals where only the males can participate, including very often the last rites which are performed only by the male child and not the female child. And in an unorganized society where you do not have pension facilities for old age, it is your male child and his family who's going to take care of the parents in the old age. So this kind of a mindset has led to a meta preference for the male child. And it is the duty of every citizen, male, female, government, civil societies, NGOs, whatever we may talk about, to uplift the status of the women. And with the kind of opportunities that the governments and many other organizations have been providing, very fortunately, we today also have women leaders, and there are so many women leaders on this platform. So it simply means that when active interventionist policies are provided by the governments, coupled with the own challenges with the males and the families take up, women have emerged as leaders. And you talk about the corporate sector, institutional sector, organizational sector, political leaders. I think all across women leaders are immense. And I would also like to say that very often we also take and assume that a women leader has to be different from a male leader. Often traits are common. A leader is a leader. And it is with this spirit I would compliment the team for organizing this very appropriate celebration, because womanhood, in addition to not just being a leader in the so-called economic phrase, women is leader in far too many other areas, which very unfortunately have not even been accepted at the formal economic platform. And my congratulatory note to every woman who may not be contributing productively in terms of the typical GDP, but is bringing happiness to her home, is going hours to collect the fuel with which the food is going to be prepared at home, is traveling kilometers just to ensure that the children and the husband get enough adequate drinking water when they come back, and at the same time is herself not being able to even live in a comfortable world where you have sanitation and open defecation facilities provided. So there are miles to go. And the women, if they also become challengers and warriors in this development of the women, time is not going to be far away when most of the gaps are going to be filled, and women will, in the true world, will be able to celebrate the Women's Day. Thank you, Monica, once again for organizing this. And I'm very pleased to be sharing my own views and hearing the views of my other women leaders. Thank you once again to all of you. Many of you have got up early in the morning. I think it's a 2 a.m. for some and a 4 a.m. for others. Thank you once again. Shriram College of Commerce is indeed grateful for your participation, and we look forward to hearing your own journey in your leadership roles as women. Thank you.
Thank you.
Professor Simrit and Dr. Monica for setting such a poignant and yet futuristic and hopeful note for this event today. And now I will invite our first guest, Sonika Bakshi, to give her address to the students of SRCC. Yeah. Sonika, you can take the stage.
You are mute, ma'am. You are mute.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Can you hear me now?
Sonika, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ekta. Thank you so much, Simrit ji and Dr. Bansal, for giving me the opportunity to speak to such a beautiful audience today, and also to the lovely ladies, the leaders out here, from their own workspace. So as far as my story goes, my life journey goes, I think I'll start from an ICU, an intensive care unit in the year 2017 on 22nd of August. My twin sister, who was my identical twin, and for me, she was the other half. Apparently there is a Harvard study which says that, when a twin sibling is gone, the other twin sibling gets into an identity crisis. So standing outside that ICU, I had no idea that, my life will change from here on. My twin sister, Monica, she was battling acute myeloid leukemia for 3 years. And she and I were like very, very close to each other. And, we kind of motivated each other. We cried together, we laughed together, we grew up together. So standing outside the ICU, I didn't know whether my sister would step out alive. And as expected, she did pass on. And I was older than her by 40 minutes, which is again very rare. The 40 minutes gap between twin siblings. And Monica, while she was battling cancer, she taught me something in life, and that is life will never be a bed of roses. An unexpected turn of events will always fall on you without you being prepared. Because I remember how she was diagnosed with cancer, and suddenly, the world came crashing down on us. Now, why am I telling her story to all of you? The truth being, her life journey inspired me to believe that no matter how difficult your life is, no matter what you are going through, the fact that you're breathing, the fact that you have a life is enough. And my sister used to tell me, Monica used to tell me that if you are alive, you can change your life in whatever way possible to bring all the positive turn in your life as long as you are alive. And I realized that when she passed away. And I think when she passed away, I for the longest time, for 4 or 5 months, I didn't know if I had to look into the mirror, because she and I were identical. Every time I looked into the mirror, and I realized that, oh my God, I have undergone a loss. I slipped into depression. I stopped eating. I stopped combing my hair. Things suddenly changed. My sister had started something called Stronger Than Cancer, a platform, a small Facebook community where she would bring stories of cancer victories to the world, because there was such huge lack of dearth of inspiration for cancer warriors that she realized that it's high time that I start, because she was on the other side and she knew that she was battling cancer and there were no positive stories around. She started that initiative from a bone marrow transplant ICU in a hospital. And when we started that, we had around 100 odd followers, and every time we used to get one follower, we used to feel so happy that, the hope is spreading far and wide. So on 22nd August, when my sister passed away, we had around 600 followers. And today we have more than 2,500 followers. And when she passed away, I realized that this mission cannot stop here. It has to go ahead. So a lot of people ask me that you have lost a sister, you're such a dear sister to cancer. How can you talk about hope? How can you talk about motivation? I tell them one thing. Sometimes in life, you need to understand that when there is a gap in your life, I don't have a sister, I don't have a twin sibling, was very dear to me, but she managed to give me a purpose. And my purpose was to see the same kind of happiness in the eye of a cancer warrior the moment he or she gets to know that, oh, I'm suffering from a lung cancer, but there is someone sitting in Pakistan called Hira Amjad Ali, who's battled lung cancer, in the 4th stage and came out victorious. And that joy when I see in the eyes of people, I realize that my sister is still alive through that mission. And I have not stopped working on it, no matter how busy I am, no matter what circumstances in life, what circumstances have come to my life. I think that continues to be my mission, and I will continue doing that. So that is one side of the loss. And I think that was not just one aspect in my life when I battled, when I chose to challenge, as a theme for this year's Women's Day is that choose to challenge. I think my life has never been a bed of roses, and I have no regrets because I've learned so much in the process. I go back in time in 1990 when, the insurgency in Assam was very high. I lost my father because he was a businessman there, and suddenly he went missing because the alpha militants were active and they were aiming, and they were getting businessmen for ransom. And I don't know what happened to my father at that time. He suddenly went missing, and I think I was in the fifth grade and didn't know how to cope with that. My mother was a single mother, was not working anymore. Suddenly we became poor. And I understand what poverty is, because when you go without food for days together and you are wondering how to share a bread, I've gone through that situation as well. I remember we moved to a one-room house because we could no longer afford a good house. And that house did have a safe roof. And, whenever it used to rain, we used to put a tumbler or a utensil, on the bed so that the bed didn't get wet, and used to go and empty a tumbler again and again. Poverty had struck us all of a sudden. And, I used to do odd jobs even when I was in school. I remember I used to pack those packets of cashew nuts, and my mother would go to a shop nearby and would give that, and would earn some money in return. I used to teach students, but I never stopped dreaming. And what was my dream? My dream was to become a journalist. And when, whenever I used to see The World This Week, I don't know how many of you remember The World This Week, Dr. Prannoy Roy's The World This Week. I used to see those names, Saira Essa, Appan Menon, Dr. Prannoy Roy, and, I used to see them and I used to wonder, I want to be there. I want to be a journalist. I want to work for NDTV. But at that time, I was learning how to type, I used to learn steno, your shorthand steno, because I thought that all I could do in my life was to become a clerk with a private firm somewhere or become a private assistant. That is the best that I could do, because I could not dream. People told me that you can't dream, you can't become a journalist. NDTV to bhul jao. But I didn't stop dreaming, because my mother, who was a single mother, she taught us one thing for sure. Your dreams come true or they don't come true. You cannot stop dreaming. So I continue to dream, and trust me, when I stepped into NDTV office as a journalist, I did get a job with NDTV as a correspondent. And when I stepped into that office, the big photo of Appan Menon in the newsroom, when I saw that photo, I realized, oh my God, it was like a dream come true for me. I remember once I was, leaving for home, and I was coming down that spiraling stairs of Archana Complex NDTV office. Dr. Roy used to walk home, he never used to take his car because he used to live close by. He was walking down with me, and he asked me, I just struck a conversation with him, and he said, how are you feeling? It's your first month in NDTV. He was very open to talking to new people in the channel. I said, I'm very happy. And, he did this, touch wood. For me, it was like surreal. I couldn't believe that I was actually talking to Dr. Roy, whom I used to see on TV. So that was one dream come true that I have had, and there was no looking back. And I worked through NDTV, I worked through Times Now. I got enough airtime. I covered, the Congress party for the longest time. And when I was with Times Now, I covered the BJP, as a political party, because I wanted to do political beat reporting. So that dream, when the dream came true, I realized that, okay, I should not stop dreaming at all. So when my sister, coming back to my sister's death, when my sister passed away, I had 3 tragedies that had struck me in 2017. My marriage of 12 years had broken. I had, I was going through another round of depression because my marriage broke. My father, I got in touch with my father after 20 years. Someone told me that he's in an old age home, and I did write about it. It is out there on Google, the whole story. I have written it for my column. He passed away, and I always longed to be with my father. Father figure was always missing, and when I got him, he passed away. And the third was my sister's death. I was shattered. And like I said in the beginning, that I stopped eating, I stopped talking to people, I slipped into depression, I started putting on weight. One fine morning when I woke up, I realized, what the hell am I doing with my life? My sister had told me that life is everything. If you have life, you can change everything under the sun. I decided that day that I have to do something impossible, something that I feel is impossible, to make myself believe that I can change the course of my life. And I always wanted to do Mount Everest base camp trek. And at that time, I was going through a very bad phase, and I was not sure whether I could. I put on weight. I remember I weighed 72 kgs, that morning. And I was thinking, should I even try? I started working hard for it. 7 months to myself, when I lost 17 kgs, I was fit to take that trek. And I took that trek. So the trek typically takes 15 days to cover. I did it in 13 days. And when I reached Mount Everest base camp, it was not an emotional moment. It was a moment of realization that you are so powerful as a human being yourself. Despite it all, you can achieve whatever you want. No one, nothing can stop if you decide that you can achieve what you want. And I think life goes on, and we all go through difficult patches, difficult phases in life. But there are 3 facts that I have actually understood very clearly and very early in my life. I'm 41 today. 1, you cannot stop dreaming because you're a human being. 2, you cannot crib about anything because you're breathing, because there are a lot of people on the other side of the hospital window who are begging for a lease of life. And we are healthy, we're breathing, and we're cribbing. You can change everything, any situation in your life if you're alive. And third, and the most important thing is seeking help. So when I was going through difficult phases in life, I did find people around who stood by me, who advised me, who taught me that I'm not alone, and that what I'm going through is nothing that other people don't go through. The problem is when we are going through depressive phases, we're feeling low, we forget that it is a form of ailment that has a treatment. What we do is we forget this part of our brain as a part of our body. Yahan se niche tak hum bimar ho sakte hain. We can fall sick, but this part of the side cannot fall sick. So I realized that if I am falling sick, if I'm not feeling okay, I'm supposed to seek help. So these 4 lessons, I think, in life was huge. And today, I think when I look back, I realize that I worked with some of the best organizations in life. I have grown phenomenally, from where I was, from the point where I used to pack those packets of cashew to becoming director communications with a 100-year-old property consulting firm, from working with some of the best names called NDTV, Times Now, Microsoft, and now Cushman & Wakefield, and doing what I like to do. All I wanted to do is happening. So life is precious, and I think we should not stop and keep moving. I think that's about it.
Thank you, Sonika. Thank you so much for sharing this wonderful experience with us. I don't have any words to explain what it did to me personally. So thanks once again, and I'm sure that everybody who's listened to your story would really get inspired by it and feel motivated, in the real true sense, basically. So moving from here, I'll invite Purva to share her journey.
Sure. So, Sonika, you've inspired me a lot personally, and you're going to be someone I'm definitely definitely going to follow and, reach out to, because I believe in finding, that women have to find people who inspire them, and then they really have to go after them. So I found mine. So thank you so much for doing that to me. I'll start off by sharing my story, though, obviously there is still so much to learn. As we hear stories like this, we kind of look back into our lives and feel, is that big a deal? But that's what it did to me. So my name is Purva Gera, and I was just telling the teams here that I'm based in Jaipur. So my life has been like obviously, like every woman, right? We have dreams, and then we have more dreams, and then we have heartbreaks, and then we decide to move on. So I'm sure we all carry on, and that's how life is. So when I was growing up, I obviously was, a woman, a child with a silver spoon, to be honest, born in a very well-known family of the times. My grandfather had big rice mills, and they literally used to, be a family who used to say that anything that we touch becomes a pot of gold. Okay, so that was the legacy. My dad was like a very different fit in the family, because unlike all businessmen, he decided to become an engineer. So he did his engineering from BITS Pilani, got married to a very nice woman. Of course, that's my mother. The two worlds met. And, she was very bold, but she got married into a family that was very traditional. So, she was like the first of many, the first one to get a haircut in a family, and that became a big issue. Okay, so my story obviously has a lot of elements of my mother, because I'm very inspired by what she has achieved. So, she just kind of carried on. It was not a very friendly environment, but she just never gave up. Then we realized, I mean, my mother realized that there was something off about, the way my dad sometimes used to behave. We couldn't put a finger on it, but he was very, very depressed at times. Some days he would be very happy, the other days he would be very depressed. Some days his decisions would be very irrational. And when you're growing up and there are these episodes that you see and you don't really realize what it means, you sometimes get embarrassed. Like, I would have those episodes where my dad suddenly behaved in an awkward way, and I didn't want my world to know. I didn't want my friends to know, So, but I used to realize that there's a little bit of a tension going on and stress going on. Eventually, I discovered through mom that he has schizophrenia. A lot of people don't understand what it means. And the whole mental wellness in India is still a taboo. I mean, even after so many years, and I can vouch for it because I've accompanied with him for 30 years to these doctors. While there are loads of them who are very advanced, but there are also those clinics where a very junior staff is still making fun of people who are depressed and things like that. So it kind of breaks your heart, that you're going through so much and there are people who just won't understand. Anyway, so yeah, so then our worlds obviously came crashing down, because when the person who's running the family is taking decisions that are impacted by thoughts that occur and thoughts that are not real, a lot of other blunders would happen. So a lot of decisions, the whole property and everything, I mean, we just literally were left with no money. My mother had to take care not just of his family, like my dad's family, but also being a homemaker, she was responsible for two sets of parents. Now I'll tell you how. She was adopted, so she had one family, and she was adopted in the family itself. So she had one set of mother and father to take care of, and then there was the other set of mother and father to take care of, and both of them literally didn't get along well with each other. So you can understand the chaos that she was living through. However, despite of all this, she made sure that whatever she had access to, she made that available for us. And I had the best of education. So where I was living, it was a small town, but I still got a convent education, the best school, the best college to go to. And as I grew up, I realized that I had to take matters into my hands. I first dreamt of becoming a designer because I was very creative. I wanted to get into maybe, a design institute, do something of my own. However, then, you kind of become practical, and then you decide that you have to take control. So when I was 17, I started working. And then when I was 18, I actually joined Genpact, which was my first organization as an undergraduate. Did my graduation and post graduation with a full time job. I used to do night shifts then and then attend college in the morning. Did very well from an education standpoint because I still managed all the right degrees, etc. And at the same time, this organization gave me wings because, here I am from a small town, suddenly moved to a big city. And then from there, I started consulting for various banks. I was traveling the world. I was, kind of taking care of a lot of responsibilities. And that took me to a different level of a career high. And I would like to touch upon this point that it was extremely important for me to get sponsors in my career. And I was quite blessed to have people around who could actually speak about my work. So being a woman leader and an early achiever, never take that, for I mean, don't just think that it'll just happen. You have to find that yourselves. You have to find people who believe in you, and then you have to take those risks. However, extremely important again was that the environment that my parents were still giving me, because I could just pack my bags and leave despite of so much happening back in my house, right? And that was my mother. She took care of everything. She said, go, be bold, make your career. I'm there for the rest. Now, of course, as you start to grow in your career and things are all settled and you're very well known, etc., you're already ready for, like the next stage in your life where you could probably move to a different country, etc. But there suddenly life will throw you some challenges. There were a lot of challenges that we witnessed since 2017 where, we started to lose a lot of people in our family. The last of my grandmothers passed away, and it was a very tragic situation because for about a month and a half, we used to be in the ICUs all the time. But again, a very important point that a good organization will support you through your crisis, because my organization did just that. It was because of good people and the support around me that I could be in the hospital and still manage my deliverables. It was because of a fantastic team that we had built together that they just said, go do your thing. We are there for you. And a lot of times I was not even working, but still things were getting done, So that's the power of the right people in your life and the way you build those empires as well. Okay, and then when I thought one thing was better, of course we lost her. It was a bit of a situation. We couldn't really, do anything beyond a certain point. Then there came another crisis. One fine day we just had tea, and there are those little things in life that you take for granted, like my dad, despite of his illness and taking almost 5 to 6 medicines that would actually make any normal person go totally numb, he would still drop me to office every day. His daily routine was like in the afternoon, he would just live to really give me food, make sure that, home cooked food was delivered to me in office. So I particularly chose, like to live just about 2 blocks away from office so that I could see through these things. And I'm so happy that I did, because that gave them reasons to really exist. So one fine day, I was suddenly working from home. I felt the urge to just work from home that day. We had tea. There was a little bit of an argument that I had with my dad because he didn't want to eat something bland that day and he wanted to eat something nice. And we said that no, it's not good for health. Let's just have regular dal. Okay. That was the argument. In the afternoon, he just slept, woke up, had tea, stepped down. And while coming up, he suddenly passed. I mean, in 2 seconds, the world can change. In hardly 2 minutes, we just rushed down, we took him to the hospital, and we realized he wasn't there with us. So sometimes when you think everything is in control, things suddenly will change. So it took us another 1.5 years to really, even settle to the fact that this has happened. And he was literally like our child, because schizophrenia does a lot to you. You're not able to conduct your daily duties, etc., as much as you would want to. And then you really have to see those little things, and suddenly somebody who's so dependent, working through each and every aspect, if that person is not there, I can't even imagine what it did to my mother, because she really was just living to take care of all of us. Now as we speak, uh, we thought it's going to get better. I have a brother too. He was just almost about to do his MS. So he took off to Singapore, and then the pandemic hit us. It's been 2 years. It's just mom and I living alone. And, we were always used to like a joint family, 7, 8 people. So when it's just the two of us and our dog, sometimes it gets very lonely. And, there are times when you feel, oh my God, this virtual connect, it's just not working. But then there are days like this, like today, like when I hear, the stories that we are actually sharing, then there are those people who are there for you no matter what happens, that it makes life worth living. And at the same time, you can do your regular things, like like we just discussed in the previous session that we just had, that as long as you have life, you can make things better. So I have hope, and I feel that very soon the pandemic is going to get better. My brother will travel here, we will have a good reason to actually celebrate. He's now got a girlfriend, and we are looking forward to his wedding. At the same time, from a career standpoint, I started to get a bit jittery about how things were going. Though I had a very successful 16, 17 years with my previous organization, but I've realized one thing: when there's some unrest within you, and you start to feel that, even when everything is going fine from a career standpoint, you start to get those things in your mind that maybe, is this what you're going to do, etc. It's time to make a change. So I made a change, changed the organization in between a pandemic, and now I've joined a big ed tech, and I'm loving every bit of it. From a career standpoint, I'm really looking forward to it. And yeah, I mean, trying to build my teams again, left the previous ones behind, but still continue to stay in touch with them. And yeah, continue to make friends and enjoy every bit of it. I think that's a little bit. But yes, one day I know there are two things that I have to do. One, create an ecosystem where the caregivers of people with mental illnesses can be looked after, because we don't realize sometimes what they go through. Their lives are totally stalled. They are just cut off from the normal society because of the way their loved ones sometimes will behave, which other people would not be able to understand. And therefore, you're always trying to, be careful that you don't cause that hurt and angst, and in that your own life completely goes. So I have to do something for them. I'm very clear. I do it in very small ways, like joining groups, speaking about it when I can, but I know I have to do it. Second thing, which I promised myself, and because I'm saying it in the session, I know I'll make it happen, is to actually, share the life of my mom, who's been through a journey of her own, someday in one of the books I'm going to be publishing. So those are the two dreams that I have, and rest I will continue to just, live my life every day. And yeah, that's my story. I hope it can actually inspire some of you who probably would be going through similar things and may not be talking about it. So that's that.
Thank you, Purva. I don't know how to express myself. In the morning only, I was having a very mentally a very bad time, and after listening to Sonika and after listening to you, I think there's so much to actually think about the way forward. Um, Sometimes in life, you actually feel like just giving up or thinking ki, why is it happening, why is this happening at all, not just why it's happening with me, why it's just happening. And when you listen to these experiences, that we are at different points of time, we are all sailing in the same boat, we all have our own experiences, and life is not about those experiences, it's about actually going forward and going ahead of those experiences and winning over yourself and that situation. That's what life actually is. So, thank you, Purva, for sharing such a wonderful journey of yours. Truly inspiring. Now, from here, I'll move to Nandini. Nandini, over to you. We're just looking forward to hear another wonderful story. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Ekta. Thanks to you, thanks to the SRCC Women's Development Cell. You guys are really doing a wonderful job by like putting an event like this. It's very important to take the message back to the young. so they can come out with a sense of inspiration. So, and first of all, happy Women's Day to all of you, and to all the wonderful men. I see a lot of men in this call as well, who are here to support the cause. So congratulations to all of you. I will, I'll start out, Ekta, you sort of resonated on, on this thought that I had about the experiences that one goes through and how you can, it's not just about the experiences, but it's really about what you can derive out of it and how you're able to push forward. Sonika and Purva, you had such awe-inspiring stories, and certainly I think that just proves the point very well. Let me start out by doing a sort of a quick reintroduction, right? So myself, first and foremost, I am a proud mom of two young children. And then in my spare time, I'm a tech leader. I am what I believe is essentially a minority group in the world of like women technology leaders. So very proud to be in that group. I will start with that. So when Ekta reached out to me, a few weeks ago to talk about this event, and she said, talk about the journey. My first reaction was, wait, what can I really share here? And then there wasn't any particular incident or a particular experience that I wanted to start with. But I mulled over it, and after a bunch of self-reflection, if you would, I realized that it really was the series of experiences through my journey, through my career, through my life, and the context in which each and one of those happened really was triggered a sense of self-determination and grit and perseverance in me. And so mine's really just a story about that. And I'm going to share that with you all with the humble hope that the young students in SRCC are able to draw some parallels out of it and find some sort of an inspiration at the very least. I started, so I should actually go back to my entry into the field of technology. I was in eighth grade, and we were given an opportunity to choose an elective subject. And there were a few choices, and one of the newer choices was to actually go into computer programming. I chose that. And I come from a family where the value systems were all about having good education. So I studied in good convent schools. My family moved different cities, and with every new city was a new school, a new challenge, and a new language. Because a lot of you here are aware that within states there's the language barrier, so you have to break that. So that's really the first thing that you realize when you go into a new school. But back to my eighth grade story. So computer science was really the choice that I made at that point. And it was interesting because when I made that choice, I was essentially the one of 8 girls. I was in an all girls convent school. I was just one of 8 girls that chose that path. And mind you, we were like a group of probably close to 250 or 300 students in all of 8th. And then just 8 out of that was just a staggering statistic right there. So my entry into the field of computer science and programming was with this very stark, bitter realization that it's probably going to be a fairly lonely field out there for women who chose to go, embark upon that journey. I enjoyed it, but I still went forward. If anything, that pushed me further, to reinforce the fact that I did make that choice because of sheer passion and interest in the subject. It was at the risk of dating myself. I will say that it was in the 90s. So the schools were actually doing a lot by introducing this to young girls at that time. But, they couldn't really educate the girls more about what kind of career path you would essentially take if you chose that field, and how you would really grow through, grow in the field of technology. But I stuck to it, and this is where I come back to the story of perseverance, story of grit, because I decided I just wanted to stick with it. I went ahead, did my undergraduate degree in computer science. And then I went on to do my master's also in computer science from Philadelphia. I did my undergrad in Pune, and went on to the United States to actually get my master's degree. But mind you, for me, the entry was a very interesting start because it was very empowering. And I don't know if anyone will describe computer programming this way, but to me, it was, I could write a few lines of code and I could actually have the computer do whatever I wanted it to do. That was very liberating in itself. That was very empowering in itself. Um, Once I finished and solidified my education and background, I went on to, different organizations, worked in the United States, played the role of a software engineer in different projects. And one of the things that I realized very quickly was trying to draw that parallel, or I should actually say a connection between the work that I was doing as an engineer and how that would essentially impact the business or the bottom line of a company. And finding that connection, I think, was what really quickly made me realize that there is potential for success right there. And got me very intrigued to a point where, I wanted to find ways to steer the business through the tech work that I was doing. And that's what got me into, management and tech leadership. But what happened along the way was, with every step up through the corporate ladder, or through every promotion that you went through, I realized that my peer group started looking very different with each step up. And the further up the corporate ladder you sort of grow, you realize that it actually is fairly lonely out there for women leaders, women tech leaders. Um, you would tend to become what I would call like the only in the room. You're either the only woman in a conference room talking big strategy, or you're the only person of color, in my case, in some situations, or you're the only technologist in the room as well. But we hear a lot of staggering statistics about the poor representation of women in leadership roles, and I can tell you through some of my firsthand experience that some of that is true. Some or all of it is essentially true. There's a lot of good work that's being done today in making sure the tech field is introduced to young girls in schools. But there's very little that's essentially being done to help them stick to the field and grow in that sector. So there's a lot of work that remains to be done, and I go back to the stories of being the only in the room. Oftentimes, and these are some practicalities which I will share for the young students here, is you will often find yourself in a place where there's another male who would refuse to look you in the eye because you're a woman. Sometimes it would be very hard for them to take an instruction from you because you're a woman leader. These are very practical scenarios. In fact, there was this incident where I was at an organization when we started an ERG, like an employee resource group, particularly to help women support each other. I think Purva talked about the importance of finding the sponsorship and finding the support through each other. So we started an initiative to help women come together and help them promote through the ranks. So the initiative was about creating the right kind of opportunities and using more standardized, consistent criteria for promotion and evaluation. So it becomes a fair process, and becomes an equitable process. But even through those initiatives, I did actually receive a lot of headwinds in the form of where people would say I was essentially trying to empower and help other women unfairly over some of the men. But you may not necessarily have heard that reaction if it were the other way around. So, the reason I'm sharing some of these experiences is these exist in a corporate world. It's very unfortunate we are in 2021, but these are some practicalities that definitely exist. And through all of those, again, my message is of grit and and standing up to it and really calling it out. I think Purva or Sonakshi also talked about finding that strength in any of those experiences. So that's really my biggest message that I would like to share here through as part of the corporate world, as you would. None of those really stopped me from being very assertive. If anything, in fact, it actually helped me want to break that mold even more. So my biggest takeaway from all of those practicalities, which I hope that you can all benefit from, is always speak your truth. Sometimes it's very important to call out that behavior when it's right at the moment. You can there's also a certain sense of unconscious bias that can happen. Not every aggressive behavior can be tied to a malicious intent, but you don't know unless you essentially like call it out, or unless you actually talk about it. So again, not talking about it to me is really not an option. It was never an option, because I felt like that was a disservice both to myself and some of the other women around me who were really trying to take on the same trajectory. So it's very important to speak up, because someone's going to listen. If you want to be heard, you have to speak your truth. You have to be authentic, and you really need to come forward and make your point across. And that's really the only way you overcome this. And through each of those experiences, certainly will find a lot of strength. That was one. I kind of reflect back as like two phases of my career. So that was the phase of going through those experiences, learning from it, and kind of overcoming it. Then came a phase where very interestingly it coincided with motherhood. I wonder if it has something to do with each other. But there was a shift from from moving away from that awareness phase to let's do something about it phase. I'd grown through the corporate ladder. I definitely hit a glass ceiling. And then I decided I wanted to actually pause and see if there were ways that I can apply some of my experience towards a bigger purpose, so towards a bigger cause, one that can genuinely help people. That's when I met Jana, and we we built Speakfully. You'll hear a lot about Jana's story shortly after me, but I will give you a quick introduction about the Speakfully platform. We're essentially a tech solution that helps people navigate mistreatment, both at a personal level as well as in an organizational setting and professionally. Jana will talk a lot about the founding principles and her story. And for me, it felt like that experience was essentially coming full circle. And it from point in my career where I started to learn the ropes and grow through the ranks, but now came full circle back to a place where I had the opportunity to really give back and help others. Immensely satisfying experience. Seeing how people use Speakfully, seeing how it's really had a positive impact. It's priceless. It's really very hard to describe that emotion, but it's like life's a full circle, I would say. But through all of this, I mean, these are all like little small experiences that I can share through my career. But through all of this, the key message here that I wanted to share is really about that perseverance. Self-determination, finding your truth, finding a way to essentially come out and speak your truth. That's the most important thing that you can all learn. And as students coming out of your of your undergraduate degree here, or graduate degrees that you're doing at SRCC, as you come out of this and you're ready to take on the world, you're ready to embark a professional life, always try to find ways to tap into that inner strength, because that exists in all of us. And never be afraid to really come out and speak speak your truth, because at the end of the day, that's really what helps you create that connection, and that's really what can essentially help you find success in your own mind. And the definition of success, I believe, is your own. It's not a generic term criteria for success, but it's your own, and you find that within yourself. So that's really my biggest message. Find that inner grit and take it through the cycle of learning. I'll stop there and I'll kind of hand it back to you, Ekta. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to really speak my truth here also. Thank you.
Thank you, Nandani, for sharing such a wonderful experience and a positive journey where actually we need to understand that if we take a decision in life, even if we are young in the 8th grade, like you mentioned,
Mhm.
we should not give up. You had that calling in you. You never gave up. Even if you were the only person in the room, you didn't give up. Even if there were just 8 students along with you, you didn't give up. You know, that's the beauty
Right.
of it. And that's something which we really need to learn, that if we really believe in something, we should not give up, even if we are the only person who's fighting for it or who's, just following our passion, right? So
Yeah, without a doubt.
thanks once again for sharing such a beautiful story. And with that, I'll move over to Jana. She's been waiting for a long time. So, Jana, the stage is all yours. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, excited to be here. Happy Women's Day. Yeah, there's a lot to go off of here. Now you have me last, and now I have a lot to like live up to here after everybody else and all of their stories. So for me, again, my name is Jana Morin. I am the CEO and co-founder of Speakfully, the company that Nandani was just speaking of. And a lot of my story comes from the experience of how Speakfully was created. And I will get to that in a little bit. I think my main message is, to your point, Ekta, not to give up, because you never know what opportunities are going to come up for you. I think for me, if you were to tell me even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it doesn't really matter. If you were to tell me where I am now, I would have said, absolutely, no way would I be doing that. And I think a lot of that has to do with you just don't know what opportunities are going to rise for you at any given time. I think my whole life, is not what I would have thought it was going to be. I think when you're younger, especially in the US, I know cultures are different, but for us, the story and the way that when I grew up, it's you go to school, you go to college, you get married, you have kids, you have the house, you have the white picket fence. My life is nothing like that. I'm 39 tomorrow. And my life has been completely opposite of that. I would have said maybe that's what I was going to do. I would have thought that initially. And as I continued to get older, had different opportunities come up for me that just made that not the case. And I don't regret any of them. I am very happy to be where I am, but that's kind of my message, and you'll see that throughout, because nothing I did or up to this point would have thought that I would have brought me to where I am now. So yeah, I grew up all over the United States. I grew up, my dad worked for the government, so we moved around quite a bit. And I do think that, it made me who I am in regards to my personality. I had to move around a lot, had to meet people, and go into new schools, meet new kids. And so my personality and the way that I am, I believe, is a lot from that. And I had really good experiences in doing that. So I am really thankful for being able to move around, meet new people, bring out my personality. So that was, moved around a lot, ended up being in Minneapolis in my high school years, so which made it very easy to go to college right across the border in Wisconsin. I went to school, that's where I'm currently living now, but I went to college here. And when I went to college, I didn't know what I was going to school for. So I'm very unlike Nandani. She was in 8th grade and was already coding. I was not doing that. I didn't know what I wanted to go to school for. Again, this is what I thought what I was supposed to do, because that was what they said that you were to do. And I had a great time in college. You know, I went to school. I was, the first 2 years are general electives for us. So, you know, it gave me some time to figure out what it is that I wanted to go to school for. I changed my major probably 3 times. I think I was an elementary ed major initially. Then I went to be, I was in business major second. And then last, which I do nothing with now really, but I was a kinesiology major. So I was very interested in learning about the body. So for me, I thought that was really interesting. I wanted to do that because it was something I was super passionate about, and I still am, but I don't do a lot with it when it comes to work. So graduated with a kinesiology degree, and then I went into healthcare administration. Did that for a few years, and then I decided to pivot and go into tech because that seems normal, healthcare administration to tech. So then again, nothing is as it seems. You never know what opportunities are going to come up for you. And so then I went into tech. It was in a startup for 6 years, grew with that startup in operations and in operational leadership roles. Then I went and worked within an IT department after that, which kind of leads me to the story of Speakfully, which is the bulk of the messaging that I have, and some of, you know, the hardships that I've had within the workplace and how you can come out of those. And so for me, the main story is how Speakfully was created. So as you know, it's a platform for employees to be able to go up, have a place to speak up, and then a place for organizations to be able to get some data and analytics that they wouldn't otherwise have in order for those employees to come forward sooner, right? So when I started working at a new company, I started working for a C-suite employee at a company of about 800 employees. And what I did there is, so as an operational role in that I was kind of a liaison between IT and the business. So I was kind of the voice of IT, essentially. I kind of would build relationships within the business so that we could get projects and do different IT projects and get those underway in an easier way with those relationships that I built. And so I worked for, again, a C-level employee and kind of was the voice. I would always come back and do the projects that were more business related that kind of worked with them. So I did a lot of different projects within that. And as my tenure there, I would say my first few months went really well. Me and my boss worked really well together. He talked a lot about my development within the organization, the trajectory that he felt that I could go within the business. Professional development was an ongoing conversation that we had, and he was very good at the time. I felt a very good mentor and really cared about where I went within my career. And as that went on for a few months, I was really happy, really excited. And after that, things started getting a little weird. Things started making me feel uncomfortable with some of the things that he was saying to me. Some of the actions that he was doing was I couldn't quite pinpoint it. It just didn't feel right. And I think as I continue to tell this story, one thing that I say a lot, and why I feel like we as women find ourselves in these positions sometimes, is that it's not black and white. It's a lot of gray, and it's lots of stories that build up. That's why it's so confusing, is because it's so many stories that end up building up. You kind of don't really understand, or at least I didn't at the time. I didn't understand what it was that I was going through. And then all of a sudden, you know, I thought to myself, how did I get here? How did this happen? And I think it's because it's so subtle. The things that are happening, the things that were happening to me were so subtle and eventually got bigger and bigger, that I was, in this situation where I couldn't navigate it myself. I was really confused. And like I said, it was a lot of comments, lots of different things that he said that progressively got worse throughout time. And I had to really navigate and change my personality based off of him and what he was thinking and doing, so that I didn't upset him. And so I couldn't even come to work and be my full self. I had to change my personality so that I didn't set him off. And so it was a roller coaster. I will say that, a roller coaster of emotion that I never thought that I would be in. And I think you never think that you're going to be in a position like that until you're in it. And I have learned a lot from it, in the sense that I don't judge anyone anymore. You can never judge anyone in their situations, unless you are the one actually in it. You can't judge them because you don't know. So I think that has, that's another lesson that I've learned over time. But eventually I ended up leaving the organization because of, the experiences that I was going through. And once I left, I reflected a lot on what I wish I would have had as an employee in that space during those times, and then what I wish the organization would have had in order for me to come forward sooner. And that's, how we started thinking about Speakfully, thinking about what that might look like. And that's kind of how it's created. So to Nandani's point, a lot of it was created and thought about based off of the experience that I went through. But then we've also talked to a lot of different people that have experienced the same thing, and have gotten intake or input that way. But we thought a lot about that. I started looking at a tech leader, and trying to find a tech leader that I think we would work well together and collaborate well together. And Nandani actually, so I love telling this story, and I think she knows what story I'm going to tell. I didn't have a logo yet or anything. I just threw together a job description for a tech leader. And I threw it on a woman's site here in the US. And she was the very first person to apply. And I kind of thought that nobody was going to apply to it because we didn't have a website, we didn't have a logo. So people were going to look at it and think that who is this company? It doesn't exist. I don't know what it is. And she wrote this really great email about why she was passionate about the cause and what we were doing and looking for. And so she was the first person that I interviewed for it. And I couldn't, Nandani is she's so, she's very humble, and she is a badass. She is amazing. I couldn't have done it without her. And I am so grateful we get along. We work so well together from an operational side and a technical side. And her and her team have built the platform from the ground up. And so I can't speak more highly of her. So don't let her fool you. She has done a lot, and she is really good at what she does, incredibly smart. So you should all look at her as a mentor as well, because I do. So you all should do that as well. But that being said, this is where we are. Fast forward, 3 years now. And now we have Speakfully, which, the pandemic, to people's point before, it has impacted us slightly because we just launched our organizational product right before the pandemic started. But that's why you have to pivot, change what you're doing based off of the situation you're in. And to my point earlier, at the beginning, you just don't know opportunities are going to come up for you. I definitely didn't think this was where I was going to be. And so just because you're in something or you're in a certain spot at the time, it might feel like it is uncomfortable, or it might not even be like a great experience at the time. You don't know what that's going to lead you to. And even if it's a negative experience, positive experience, you just don't know what it's going to lead you to, and don't think that because you're in a situation like that, that you won't come out of it and come out of it even better than you were before. That's all.
Jana. Thank you for this wonderful story. In fact, all four of you, the experiences that you have shared, one thing, comes surfaces that whatever comes in life, ultimately, the sun will shine. Yeah. And it's happened with all of, each one of you, that you've gone through the different difficult experiences of life, but ultimately something good has come out of it. Yeah. Like in Nandani's case, she met, she gave up her job to, pursue her passion. And even I think she didn't even know that she'll meet Jana. Yeah. So, I mean, and one important point that you raised was that even in an adverse situation, you don't know where that adversity is leading you to, because there's a higher power, above us all. Where it is leading us, we don't know. And if we give up, we'll never know, actually. So, thank you so much. And incidentally, I just wanted to mention that Purva had to leave because she had another event of her own organization which she had to, moderate. So she left without just saying goodbye. And Professor Simrit also had to leave because of a meeting. So after this, I'll just request Dr. Monica to ask the students to ask any questions if they have. Yeah.
So yeah, Ekta, I think some of them, they have already posted their concerns in the chat section.
Okay, 1 second. So I'll just check out the questions 1 second. Yeah. Just a moment. Okay, so there's a common question for everyone which says, how can someone help or support someone, especially a woman at a workplace, when a senior is bothering them without jeopardizing their own career? Would somebody like to answer that?
I mean, I'll answer to my what yeah, I mean, it's a really good question, right? I mean, I think that that's one of the reasons why people don't do anything, is because they're worried about, I mean, retaliation, something happening to them. And that is a really valid question. I think at the end of the day, I think talking to the person themselves, like whoever is experiencing it, if you haven't already, and supporting them, because I think the biggest thing is when someone is going through that, the biggest thing for them is they need the support. And it might sound so simple, but it actually is. When you are experiencing something like that, you just need someone there for you to understand and to to say, like, yes, that's not right, that's wrong, because you question it yourself over and over it. And I think you can always go to anyone in leadership, or anyone that you might feel comfortable with. But again, it's talking to the person who's involved, making sure they feel comfortable with you doing it. And even if not, you can come forward to leadership. But it's different in every org, because all leadership is different. But I would say number one and foremost is being there for a support system for that person. And then if you feel comfortable going forward and bringing it up to someone you feel comfortable going forward to first, to see what they might suggest, and if they think it's something that you should come forward with, like another person in leadership. Because that's where, we talk about this with our product, is you always feel more comfortable going to someone specific, because you have that relationship with them. And so I would suggest going to them first and then kind of getting their feedback.
Okay, thank you, Jana. Thank you so much. So we have another question. How do you balance your personal and professional life? So anybody from the panel can answer.
I can try and tackle that one. I don't know that I necessarily know the answer fully. It's work in progress, I would say. But you have to prioritize. I think it's very important to draw a line. We live in challenging times. We know world post-pandemic essentially looks very different, because now people say that you're not really working from home, but you're actually living at work. So the lines are all very blurred. So it's very important to essentially draw a line and say, here's where I'm essentially completely going to shut off. And it's much needed to to recharge, to regenerate a little bit more. And it's not healthy to, to bring the two together. So prioritize very clearly and stick to a routine. That would be my take, and try to separate the two all the time. It's important to do that for mental health.
Okay.
I think I would like to add here something. I think Nandini is absolutely right. Compartmentalizing your role at work and home is very important, and mixing both is not a great idea. Like she said, that you can shut off the moment you're home and you know that your home wants you. And there's nothing wrong in doing that. And I think organizations are pretty okay about accepting that these days. And one should just be very clear that I'm not going to mix both and compartmentalize. I think that really goes a long way. I do that because I'm a single mother and I do that on a daily basis.
Thank you, Sonika. Thank you for adding your point to it. Yeah. Okay, so the next question is for Jana, especially. How do we move forward with our idea for a startup when everyone is telling us that the idea won't work?
Yeah, we get Speakfully is a very progressive product, right? So only certain organizations want what we have as well. And so we know it's a hard task, even with what we're doing currently. And I will say that it only takes one yes. So keep pushing. And if you believe in it and you're passionate enough about it, it only takes one yes, and so once you actually have that one yes, then you don't even understand how much that re-energizes you, and then you just need to get to the second yes, and once you get that one, then it starts going a little bit faster. So I would say to just keep pushing forward and persevere through. It's never easy. I will tell you that it's a roller coaster of emotion. You could have like one really exciting thing that that me and Nandani think was exciting, but most people outside of us would not think it's that exciting, because it's something actually smaller to some people on the outside, but it's little wins, right? And so as you go on, it just takes one yes, and then you can keep pushing forward. So I would say keep pushing forward, because if you believe in it enough, it will happen. It's just a matter of, it takes time, and also things I think feel a lot longer for you being in it versus the time and the realistic time that it is actually taking. So it just takes time, and you'll have those wins that are really exciting, but then you'll have those lows that aren't as exciting. And so it's a roller coaster of emotion for sure. So just keep pushing forward, because again, just one yes.
Thank you, Jana. Thank you for answering this one. So the other question is for Nandani. How to deal with indirect ways of discrimination that occur in a workplace, like inappropriate questions regarding continuity in a job interview or promotion opportunities for women due to supposedly lack of time commitment?
That's also a really good question. And have no tolerance for it. I think that would be the biggest message I give. Discrimination in itself is something that we should all be frowning upon, especially as women. But I think it's also equally important to recognize that when people are being passive aggressive, I guess that's what the question sort of relates to, when it's an indirect way of discrimination, have no tolerance for it. I think it's very important to call out what was being done, and call out the fact that you're being discriminated against, and put forward the fact that you're not willing to take that sort of discrimination for ABC reasons, whatever applies in your personal case. And it's very important to tell the other party that where you stand, where your head is, what your boundaries are, and define those boundaries very clearly. otherwise you're just, you're never going to be heard if you don't really speak up. So I think it goes back to the same thing. It's whether it's a direct discrimination. In some ways, direct discrimination, I guess, is easier because there's no black or, there's no gray. It's a little bit more obvious. So you can just call that out. But it's the gray area. And Jana was talking about, how her whole experience was about, being in that zone. So anything that you're uncertain about, I would say, find inspiration in Jana's story, do what she did, take it, hold it, from the front of it, and handle the situation, turn it into a positive environment, turn it into something, a positive outcome, both for yourself and for those around you. Speak your truth, be authentic, and say, look, I have no tolerance for this. Here's my boundary line, and you got to stay within that.
And one thing that
It's
we've never
important.
talked about before, or that I didn't say either, to your point, Nandani, is make sure you write down everything. That is the one thing that, we don't necessarily know to do at the beginning, especially going into the workforce for the first time or whatever that might be. Just write down everything, because you never know when you might need that. And if something feels even slightly uncomfortable to you, just go write it down. Like, you may not even look at it again, and that's fine, but go write it down, and have that documentation there for you if you ever do need it down the line, because it will come in handy later on. If it doesn't feel like it in the moment and it feels weird, but I would just recommend, to do that.
And that adds to recognizing that something bad is actually happening to you. And having that recognition is essentially half the battle, and then finding the support.
Trust your gut. Trust your instinct.
Trust your gut. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ikta, you're on mute, I think.
Yeah, thanks, Jana and Nandani. Another question is, this is for the entire panel. What keeps you motivated, especially during the pandemic? So who wants to go for this one?
I think in my case, my daughter and my dog. I think both of them keep me motivated, because I think both teach me that, as a child, my daughter Avika, she can do so many things. Children don't get bored. They engage in different things. It is us who are adults who crib, oh, there's nothing to do, oh, I'm so bored. They are always doing something. And same is the case with my dog. She's always up to something. And I think sometimes in life you get inspired from everyone. In my case, I get inspired from my daughter and from my dog at the same time.
Thank you, Sonika. That was such a, very spontaneous way of putting it, because we don't even know where we are getting the inspiration from. Yeah. Thank you, Sonika. Anybody else wants to go for it? Yeah.
I don't, it depends on the day. Yeah, I mean, I think for me now, especially now, I mean, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, right? For this pandemic. I mean, it feels like it's closer for us to finally, it's going to take some time still, but at least that we have some hope there, and that actually motivates me. And I live by myself with my dog, and so I am by myself a lot. And so I try to compartmentalize a lot. I've gotten really good at compartmentalizing as I've gone on. Otherwise, I'm in my head for 24 hours a day, and you're just talking to yourself. And so for me, I try to compartmentalize and just focus on what I have control over. And I think that helps try to really motivate me to, look farther down and in the future, because I know that it is getting better slowly. And I have hope in that. Thank
you, Jana. Thank you. So we just have to keep our spirits up. Yeah. Okay. So there's another very interesting question, which actually, I personally believe in, because what I always feel is that if you make changes at the grassroots level, we are able to change. If we change the foundation, we are actually able to change the entire structure of the building. So this question says, how can we change things for students, boys and girls both, at a college level, to train them to become more inclusive members of the workforce in the future? So who wants to go for this one? Sonika, would you like to try this?
So I am not an HR expert, but I can say from my experience, as a woman who has worked across diverse industries and has had experience in different fields, I think what the worst that happens is, even as a student, when I was a student, I was made to believe that being on TV. I'll cite example of being on TV, and as a journalist, that being on TV is a glamorous thing. Like I mentioned, that when I saw journalists, on this news magazine called The World This Week, I was wondering, wow, how lovely it is to be there. But the true picture is appears to us only when we are in the field. We know how the industry works, how it functions. I think at the grassroots level, even in college, I think when students are told what is the field that they're going to take up in the future, I think showing them the real picture in terms of what are the pros, what are the cons, how exciting, how boring, how challenging that field will be. That gives them the opportunity to prepare themselves in advance and then move forward. Then there are no rude shocks. They're prepared for both sides, the good and the bad. So I think that as teachers, I think it becomes extremely important for people in colleges to teach their students how to go ahead in terms of their pursuit for career. I think that is what I understand.
Thank you, Sonika. I think that's a very valid point. Anybody else wants to add on something?
Sure, yeah, really, kind of extending Sonika's point as well. It's important that it's an important message we want to give our young students is that being different is not, it should not be confused with a very negative, it's not a negative connotation, right? And you talk about being inclusive in an environment, but you can only be inclusive if you actually have respect for being different and have that respect for being diverse in some ways. So even as students early on, there may be somebody who speaks a different language, or there may be somebody who has a different kind of interest, or they are different. But recognizing and creating that, teaching the message of tolerance, and appreciating and celebrating the differences between each other, I think is important, is a very important message to get through with the young group. So as they're ready to come into organizations, they're functioning with a sense of inclusivity at the end of the day. And we talk about being only in the room, or you talk about being discriminated against. You automatically come in with the mindset that there's no tolerance for any of that. So I think teaching them that being different is actually maybe a positive rather than a negative is important.
Thanks, Nandani. Okay, so here this brings us to the last question, and we are already at 5:07. So, how to start a conversation about work-life balance in a workplace environment where everybody else put their work-life balance at the backseat in general? So, especially we see in the pandemic days, especially work from home. There's no restrictions on the timelines, so people are receiving calls in the early morning, in the night. So in even in such a situation, and generally also, how does one balance the situation and balance work life balance actually? Who wants to go for this?
I can go. I think it all comes back to creating those boundaries for yourself. I think everyone has different ways they do it, but some, I know of some people who, after a certain time, after 6 p.m., they don't answer or send out any emails. After you just create those boundaries, your personal boundaries, and then you abide by those. And that is in hopes of being able to balance, your work life versus your personal life. I think having those conversations, even if it's with your manager, I think those are all valid conversations to have if you feel like, you're getting bombarded with emails and calls at all different days and times of the night. And so just putting those boundaries in place and having those conversations with your manager so that they know. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Jana. I think that's, we are always re-emphasizing this point that we all have to create boundaries for us. So that's very important point. And it's actually, that is when we decide what we want in life. And that's how we create boundaries, right? Okay, thank you so much, everyone. This brings us to the end of the session. Wonderful having all of you here.
Ekta,
And
can I ask a question? I'm also one amongst the people those who are interested in us. Just a very small question and a very common problem that all of us face as women. So I mean, I personally believe that women, they embrace guilt like anything else. Guilt of not having it all, guilt of not managing our families well, guilt of not giving time to our kids, guilt of not keeping everything 100% up to the date, right? So I mean, how to deal with it?
Can I take that question?
Yes.
Because I'm a single mother, and I think from the start, I go through this syndrome, where I used to feel guilty about everything. A, leaving the child behind. A, B, not being in tune with what's happening in her school, or perhaps I'm very tired and I can't give her time. But I think what I learned, in a hard way, and that is, if you are not happy, trust me, you cannot make anybody happy around you. So happiness for yourself is key, and you should be non-negotiable. It should be non-negotiable. You should be absolutely unapologetic about it. So for now, if I'm reading a book, I really love reading books. And when I'm reading a book, my daughter, who's 12 now, she knows that she has to give me that space because I'm reading a book, because she also knows, like I said, compartmentalizing is very important. So when I am with her, I am with her. And when I'm reading a book, I'm unapologetic about the fact that she's, hovering around me, looking for me, wanting to talk to me. When I had to go for my 21 days expedition to Nepal for my first climb to Mera Peak, I had gone for 21 days leaving my child behind, because I knew that when I would come back after my summit, a successful summit, I would be the happiest mother in the world. And my daughter will take so much pride from that. And I think that's the key. You have to see how happy you are. And if you are happy, everybody is happy.
Perfect. Thank you, Sonika, for answering my question so well. Yeah, Ekta, you may continue.
Okay. Anybody wants to add? Because Sonika has really put a very valid, very strong point ahead. We always kind of neglect our own happiness and sacrifice it for the happiness of others. Anybody wants to add here?
The only thing I totally agree with her. Compartmentalizing is the biggest thing for me. But then also when I'm compartmentalizing, because I feel guilty not when I'm not doing anything, like feel guilty about not working, feel guilty about whatever. And I try to find activities to do that like get my brain so that it stops thinking about those things, whether it's reading a book, watching a show, listening to podcasts. Those will keep my mind going so that I don't feel guilt. So I don't feel that guilt, right? So I think it's compartmentalizing, but then also finding those things that you can do that totally take your mind off of it, at least for a little bit. That's kind of what I do.
Yeah, and I'll add to that and say it's a beautiful message, right? To focus on the self and do it guiltlessly, because those that are around you, and Sonika talked about her 12-year-old daughter. Yeah, so like I was saying, when you focus on yourself, then, those around you, especially the young around you, they also watch and learn and recognize that it's okay to actually focus on the self. When I have my reading time, I like to sit with my Kindle and read a book. And I know my 7-year-old daughter is like looking at me all the time. And she knows that, that's quiet time. That's like, self-care time. And she's starting to do that now. And I think it's knowing that there's a lesson from you focusing on yourself, and others that can actually pick up that guilt-free guilt-free exercise, or whatever you want to call it. I think that in itself should be satisfying. It can help you take the guilt out of it, maybe.
Thank you so much. So it's all about focusing on the self, and then everything else gets taken care of. Yeah. Okay, cool. So that brings us to the end of this session today. Yeah. It's 5:14 already, and we are much in time. So I must thank each one of you, even Purva, who's not there with us right now, for sharing your stories with us. It was such a wonderful experience, and it's my personal request to each one of you. If anybody, from SRCC kind of reaches out to you for mentoring or some advice, I think you are the best people to, offer that kind of guidance to them. So always, just be ready for that. I'm sure your stories are going to inspire them a lot. Thank you so much, everybody, once again. With that, I'll ask Dr. Monica to add a closing note to this. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Ekta. Thank you so much. So as I always say, like we are strongest when we cheer each other, right? And I think that's what we have done today. It was, I must say that the session was actually thought-provoking, especially when Sonika started the session. It was like, I was literally, into tears because, maybe I haven't gone through that, but yes, maybe whenever, God forbid, but listen, her session has given me that strength to face the situations as they come and maybe to deal in a much stronger manner, right? So, and right from Jana to Nandani to Purva, all of them, they were like amazing. It was thought provoking, it was inspirational, and it was, it gave me a new direction to think and to take life as, right? And so my heartfelt thanks to all the speakers, to Ekta, to Principal Ma'am, to all the students, to the lovely audience out there. And I'll be just summing up the whole session in the words of Sonika. I'll just reiterate what she said, that as long, in fact, in the words of her sister, I should say, as long as you have life, you can make everything better. So just go with that spirit, right? Never give up, no matter what the situation is, because there is a very famous song which goes like this: Zindagi ki yahi reet hai, haar ke baad hi jeet hai. So I think that's the line that we should keep in our mind while struggling with situations. That's the one day we are going to conquer the world and we are going to come out of the difficult situations that we're going to face. And let's keep on sharing each other. Let's keep on learning from each other. And that's how I think the life goes. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, once again. Thank you so much. Anybody wants to add a closing address to the audience from the panelists? Yeah.
It was so amazing to listen to such beautiful stories, from Jana, from Nandini, from Purva. And I think each one of them has so much to teach. I think I'm going back with a lot of learning today. And thank you so much for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Sonika.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure to have all of you with us.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for joining.
Happy Women's Day.
Happy Women's Day to everyone.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Subscribe to our channel for latest updates on leadership interviews, webinars and educative videos related to human resources, learning and development, culture, employee engagement, and many more.